Stop me if you've heard this one before. Batman, Superman, Spider-Man, Daredevil. Really, they're just cops. They're cop stand-ins. They are on the side of justice and the man. They are oppressing the oppressed. They're the bad guys, actually.
Bringing us down. Damn. And you know what? Maybe. Just
I thought
maybe.
you said you were gonna have a take, and then you say maybe.
Just maybe. Uh, I think they've, I guess you could take it from a few different perspectives, but ultimately they're vigilantes. That's not necessarily sanctioned, but they're they're judge, jury, and in some cases executioner. While that's not necessarily a function of the cop, uh, they're enforcers for sure. I think that's valid. Well, maybe.
I think this is a complicated one because I think it depends on the character and depends on if they're in a team or not. Um, I think when it's just a singular person running on this, like whatever their ideas are, and enacting their version of justice or vengeance or whatever, it depends on the character. I guess we can use like Batman for an example. Is Batman cop-like? I don't think so. Um, I think he is. Yes, he is a rich billionaire and is fighting for himself, but also justice in a billionaire's perspective. But I really wouldn't consider him a cop because he's not fighting for that billionaire. He's fighting for justice and honestly, the little guys of Gotham, if we're being honest. You got stuff then like Green Lantern, which that's literally a police force in space. It's, they have a rule book, they have um, little guys that control things from the back end with Oa and the Guardians, and you can say that they have a kind of a black and white view on the universe and all that, and they're fighting for that in the Book of Oa, literally. I think you could probably argue that a little more, but it's so I can't paint with a huge brush with this thought. I don't know if you guys can narrow me down a bit.
But Batman, I think to your point, he fights crime and he protects the public. I mean, that's the NYPD slogan. Uh, yes, it's not for the interests of billionaires, but technically neither are the police. Just because they take it upon themselves to be the good guy, they're enforcing a law that they see has been broken unilaterally.
So I have a very strong opinion as opposed to these two gentlemen. I think this is fucking dumb, and I'll tell you why. Yes, Batman does employ the techniques of police. Yes, he is a detective. So he uses some aspects of what police do in his own operation. But in pretty much every Batman comic I have ever read, there is only one cop that Batman likes, and that's Jim Gordon. That's his best buddy. Every other way, Batman could give a damn about the GCPD. They suck at what they do, and they're mostly corrupt. So Batman is clearly not on their side at all. And he's on the side of justice, but justice is independent of systems. Justice is justice. And you could make the argument that he decides what justice is. And I agree with that. But because it's a comic book, he is right. He doesn't there are really very few comics in which Batman takes a stance that is not correct.
But just because the GCPD is corrupt doesn't necessarily mean that they don't also would want to, in an otherwise ideal state, want to uphold a concept of justice. I think that's equating them at that point.
They don't, though. What are you talking about?
Well, but
Well,
I'm
a lot
saying,
of the
right, like,
corruption for GCPD though is from the mob,
sure,
and
but
Well,
but but
whatever it is, they're corrupt.
but in the ideal state, right, they're aligned in their beliefs.
But this word
mm,
ideal, it doesn't. It's immaterial. It's not. The ideal doesn't exist.
But then I don't think that diminishes that. Then it just excludes Batman because then if they're both ultimately on the side of justice, Batman has one bad day and he becomes the villain.
But that's what you say, but that's not what happens in the comics.
That's if,
Yeah, you're talking
Yeah.
about, you're using ideal and fantasy. We're talking about what is. In the comics, the
What is?
GCPD is corrupt and Batman is all good. That's it.
It's also corrupt to show Gordon as the good cop, to have that foil
Sure.
and that version to show that.
But also to express why people fall through the cracks and why Gotham is a piece of shit place. If
Yeah.
the GCPD were good, then theoretically they wouldn't need Batman. Because when Batman was first created, there was no supercrime.
And I think especially when it comes to Gotham, I think the GCPD is not their ideal goal is not justice. It's to do what either the commissioner or the mayor says at the time, and whoever
To
that
uphold the
character
law.
is. Yeah, whoever that character is at the time, that is malleable, whatever that idea is. It's not absolute. Um, it's just storytelling device. So I don't necessarily agree with that. I'm more with Sean on that side of things.
But you don't think there's symbols for that for the enforcement of I'm
Not for
Of
thinking
people of
like
law.
Gotham.
well, but I'm thinking like let's say Spider-Man. He's your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. I mean, at that effect, he's a neighborhood watch.
But neighborhood watch and police are different. Like Batman would be the perception of justice, where GCP would be the perception of law. Those law and justice aren't the same thing.
In theory, the way those concepts are discussed, they're interrelated. But in
Sure.
reality, they're not.
Yep.
And definitely not in Gotham. But,
Sure.
neither in real life.
Justice is more of an absolute term that's based on morality. Rather, law is a mostly black and white term based on the powers that be.
At the time, dude, there are people serving sentences right now for weed, which is
Sure.
legal in my state. That's insane.
Is legal in Gotham? Do we know?
Probably not, dude.
Probably not.
Yeah,
Yeah.
probably not.
But let's shift the character, because I think that people really go hard on this point when it comes to Batman, but I think it's always wrong. So let's go ahead.
Sean has to a little peek behind the curtain here. Sean came up with this idea and we were talking about it. Was this due to the Chuck Dixon image that was recently posted?
Oh no, I totally wasn't even thinking about that. But by the way, fuck that guy.
You know what I'm talking about, though. Marco
Yeah.
probably hasn't seen it.
I haven't seen it.
So-
I've heard
so
rumblings.
For context, Daniel Warren Johnson drew this really cool image of Batman like yoking up a cop, and I think it said ICE.
Oh,
It said,
ICE,
that's
yeah, it
right.
was an ICE agent, yeah.
And then Chuck Dixon posted a version. I don't know if he drew it himself or he found it and reposted it, whatever he did, but it was Batman choking up an Antifa protester,
Yeah.
which is stupid. The equation is dumb. This
Yeah.
is coming from the minds of fools.
I hate that the art was pretty good, but the message behind it was bullshit. Yeah.
But no, it didn't come from that. But let's talk about a character like Daredevil, who
Sure.
is interrelated with law and justice, and law are played on a lot in his comics because he is also a lawyer.
Yeah.
During his day job. Daredevil, to me, is one of the better examples of why superheroes aren't cops and kings.
Yep. Yeah, very much so. He is similar to Batman. He doesn't give a shit about being like a cop. It's about the empirical idea of what justice is. And if he can get that in the courtroom, the legal way, sure. If he can't, he'll do it the other way. And I think that's like on Marvel's side, probably the more straightforward idea of like this is not who he is. In fact, Daredevil has issues with the cops a lot in his stories because that idea of just laws gets put into question.
And I think that we need to see characters like Daredevil going head to head with the cops, because personally, I really don't want to read and that's why this thing always bothers me when people say this, because I've been reading comics for so long and I'm like, wait, I hate that concept. I wouldn't read comics if I thought that that's what this was. It's not. It's not propaganda. Like they're
Okay.
against police all the time, especially in Marvel because they're more street level superheroes.
Can I throw a little wrench in here?
Go ahead, of course.
I think the most cop-like a character has been is Iron Man in Civil War.
Hmm.
It was putting the law above what someone perceived as the just thing that Cap took on his stance in that.
100%. It was law versus justice. I think.
Yeah,
I think that's what they were aiming
that's
for.
the idea of the story. Yeah,
Yeah,
and I
but I
think
don't think. I don't know if he was well. You're 100% right because
he becomes Agent of Shield.
he was performing
Yeah.
cop like options. They were arresting people.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
I guess the only slight nudge back that I wanted to offer was that he perceived a greater good that he knew if they didn't play ball, things could be worse. So he had a reasoning, but ultimately, yes, what you're saying is accurate, and I don't contest that.
And I think that reasoning is for a lot of people who are actually cops.
Mm.
You know, the same idea. There is a greater good to withhold.
I mean,
You know,
that's
when they get into it.
that's the ideal of even vigilante, right? Like I'm breaking the law because there's a greater good on the other side of
Yeah,
this.
because the law isn't enough.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's why I think Civil War is so compelling because it does play with that concept and that question mark in a way that's very interesting. I'm not opposed to that at all if we're doing it from a storytelling standpoint. Like even in Civil
Sure.
War II, hate it or love it, it was bringing those questions to light again and put Captain Marvel kind of in that role. I'm cool with that. I think that's really interesting. But from a human level, from our outside, the meta perspective, come on.
I think
Well,
for the stories to work, they need to be outside the law. Actually, I think a comic adjacent thing that actually tackled this very well was the Watchmen TV show and the
mm,
idea of masks and the vigilantism with mask and hiding who you are and being able to do this extrajudicial justice based on your ideas and hide from that. I think was a very good dissection of that. Man, I love that fucking show. That show was so good.
very good.
I think it's the best singular season of television of all time. Um,
Up there with
but
like True Detective. Yeah.
yeah, but I can't, I can't let us leave this conversation without talking about the elephant in the room. Going back to the first time that I ever really identified this talking point, we have to talk about the MCU.
Okay.
So when the MCU started, for context, the American perception of military and war changed because of the preceding years, the prior years.
And
And
this would have been 2008 before that.
2008.
yeah, all right,
Yeah.
2008 for Iron Man. By the time we get to Avengers, 2012. So we're pretty anti-war at this point in time, right? And so when the Avengers are cozying up with Shield on the big screen, a lot of people saw that as propaganda. And it doesn't help. And again, I want to have this conversation with full awareness. So it doesn't help that Marvel actually did build a relationship with the military for I think there was was it a Raytheon promotion? Was
It
it
was Northrop Grumman, I believe,
yes,
military arms manufacturer.
right,
Yeah,
yes, and that was so it wasn't with the government, but it was with a manufacturer of
contractor. Yeah,
weapons. And so this caused a lot of people to scream propaganda. The superheroes are just promotional tools for the military. I still disagree with that take.
that's a take for the companies making that. I think you can critique Marvel Comics for making that comic. They weren't owned by Disney at that point. I don't know.
When that comic came out, they were, yes.
They were. Okay. Yeah. So then I think you can talk to Disney about that as well. But I don't think that changes the text of what the book is. Like, sure, maybe that book was a propaganda book, but it doesn't mean the superhero comics are in general.
Well, what's your opinion about the MCU?
Is the MCU pro-military industrial complex? Is that the question?
And propaganda.
I think those are not the same.
Okay, but do you?
I don't think it's propaganda of the MCU, but I do think there is some cozying up to military industrial complex. In terms of they can, it depends on the movie, but you know, the Iron Man of it all is probably the most direct. You know, they even talk about the character, you know, like actively deciding against working with the military industrial complex. I think it shows them in a good light a lot of the times. But I think in lately it's been doing a little more of a gray area, especially I think Cap 4, New World Order, right? That's the name of it.
Brave New World.
Brave New World. Yikes, that movie was forgettable for me. But at least that one had the idea that like, hey, maybe the US and the military aren't the greatest of people on a global scale, and what they can do. So I think there's a little more gray area, and it depends on the creatives that have been able to fix it. But like, man, that first Iron Man is like cool. We can just let's make some weapons, buddies. It's capitalism, and I think that showed them as the bad guy as well, a bit. But I think I think that's kind of where my head's going right now.
Yeah, I feel like I have never personally felt that within the films. Uh, I think any allusions to it, to your point, Tyler, I think it's always from the perspective of, oh, that's like the grubby billionaire, that's the grubby, military person. It's always put in a bad light, even if there is some sort of partnership from like a Shield X,
Yeah,
this,
Disney's done that for forever, you know.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
So from that end, I definitely don't feel it. Honestly, I can't even like off the top of my head think of one of those situations where it's happened. That I've been like, oh, explicitly, this is a would have been otherwise a statement. So I don't think so. I think people are reaching for straws.
But I think the closest it could be is stuff like Age of Ultron, where the Avengers are cozying up with the government to save the world. And then it makes the idea that like, oh, the U.S. government is the saviors of the world. I think that's where people can see that line being drawn.
But that doesn't happen in that movie. They don't team up with the U.S. government to save the world.
Sorry, I didn't mean to say Age of Ultron. I was thinking of which was it? Civil War, where there is like the side that, you know, does side with um Ross and the Accords and stuff like that.
And see, and this is the problem with these arguments, is that they're presented by people who don't read comics, because there's no possible way that you can be a reader of comics and watch any of the MCU movies and not see that they're just pulling from the Ultimates, which is the same thing. The Ultimates did it first. It's not different. And Civil War, the comic, came before the movie, which had almost the exact same concept.
A little more nuance in the book, though, which is wild to say about a Mark Miller book.
Even in like that kind of a scenario, it feels like it's story, and it feels like it's, well, these things are meant to exist in this world, and so at some point this group has to come into contact with a state, of some sort of sovereign state. So I still don't see that, right? That's still pure story, the same way that Wakanda is a nation, right? That has to operate with other nations.
It feels very much like the leftist version of keep politics out of my comics. Just for full honesty, that's what it feels
like. Look, there it is.
Yeah, like that, because that doesn't make any sense. Like, wouldn't you want, like, just in my brain, if I watch those movies and those things don't happen, I'm like, wait, where's Shield at? Like, where's the connective tissue? How is the government not getting involved? How does no one care? Because you read the comics and it's all there. So how could it be in the books but not reflected in the movies?
I think you got to keep in mind, though, a lot of people just watch the movies.
Right.
I don't have to keep it in mind. I said it earlier. I said they don't read comics.
But I think that there's like, if you're not reading the source material, does that negate the material that's in front of you?
I think so. I don't think ignorance is, like, if you're spouting bullshit, but it's ignorance, it's still ignorance. and it's your responsibility to not be ignorant because you're saying something that's not factual. Why is it that we make these arguments about non-factual information when we're talking about one side but not the other? It's you don't know what you're talking
Do you have an example
of.
like something like this happening?
Well, what we're talking about now, like if you're looking at Marvel and you want to say, or Disney, and you want to say, oh, they're pro-military because in the movies XYZ, like the conversation we just had, but you don't know that the movies are purely inspired by the comics in which all these same things happen. Would you still blame Disney, considering Disney didn't own Marvel when those comics were produced? How could that be a Disney problem if the comics came out a decade before?
My brain goes completely elsewhere with this, in so much that like when I think about this stuff, I think about it coming from like, oh, Disney only cares about the money involved. I think of it more of a 1% versus everyone else kind of situation. And that maybe the source material of the comic might have had some nuance and actually had some subtext involved, and a lot of that gets kind of um, whitewashed and bleached out for the films, um, where they don't really get all the nuance that the original source material had, or they cut out certain things, or they have to appeal to, different markets. China needs to have their own version of the movie and everything, just so the movie can sell well and be as appealing to as many people as possible. So in my eyes, it's more of like a capitalist issue, if anything. Um,
Well, what is the issue?
the issue is diluting the art but we're getting away from the topic, is the thing. It's diluting the art of the source material or the art of the actual movie and its creation, and through editing and through reshoots and through all of this to be a little more bland and have more mass appeal, just to be able to sell things more.
Oh, okay. You're onto something completely
Yeah,
different.
that's where my mind goes with all this. I don't really see it as a them cozying up to the military. Outside of that actual comic book.
So is it just a function then of like earlier, Sean, you said it doesn't happen in the comics, so because of that, it's not text. In that it's GCPD is corrupt, so therefore, the ideal doesn't exist. So does it just take a story to then say that, well, they're all good and Batman is a cop to then make it so?
I mean, well, yeah, bro, that's how it works, right? Like
Yeah, if somebody
it
wrote a
would have to
propaganda Batman
happen.
story,
Yeah, it would
then
have
that
to
would be.
happen to be the thing.
I think the question becomes like the idea of of superheroes is that propaganda, which I think some people have.
Like the story of Batman, right, is the same as, like a Greek mythology. Like
Yeah.
if you asked me something about Hercules, for example, it's just true. Like that's the story of Hercules, right? This is the story of Batman. It's circular. It's always going to be he is the hero of Gotham. GCPD sucks and is corrupt. That's just the story of Batman.
And in fact, most superhero stories on the Advent are anti uh police state or police. Think about like the way Spider-Man was made.
So
He was a menace. He was
villains.
always fighting the police. Um Same for, Cap during the Nomad arc. The president didn't do something like, so he ditched the whole title. So like they've had ideas in the comics that have been, I mean, that's the thing with art though. You kind of tend to get a certain type of people that are writing and creating the art to have that idea. But yeah, I think it's in the advent of these characters.
Marco, are you still spinning over there?
Yeah, because like I don't know, like I get the mythology of it, but the I feel like if we're meant to take this to some degree with uh if this were to operate in the real world, which it doesn't, fair enough, but um and it's just pertaining to the way that the story says, then how do we speak about the ideas or ideals that these things will represent? Like I think there's a way that you can, not that I want to agree with it, but that you can capture the essence of, well, yeah, there's a wrongness in uh being a vigilante. There's a wrongness in not making the comparison as well, just because the story delineates otherwise.
I'm not all the way sure that I know what you were saying right there.
Yeah, I'm hearing a lot of ifs,
Say
but
something concrete.
Uh, Batman, or actually get away from Batman. Let's just say Spider-Man, right? Is
sure.
He is there to protect people. He is there to enforce the laws that he feels are fair. Sure, he can apply his morals to law, but at some point he has to abide by the law to determine whether somebody else has
He does,
broken the law.
No, he
no,
doesn't,
he
bro.
doesn't. He doesn't abide by. He doesn't. His moral compass is not ciphered through the idea of law. It's the idea of justice.
There's something important that we haven't addressed yet, and apparently is a huge conversation. I didn't realize that we'd be able to
Yeah,
get
this
so
is
much out of this, but
double episode.
cops are humans with jobs.
Yes.
That is a massive point. They have bosses.
Yep.
They have supervisors. They have kids to feed. They have a lot of considerations that don't actually have anything to do with what is okay, with what is moral, with what is right.
Yep. Yeah.
The only thing that Spider-Man is concerned about when he puts that costume on is saving people and making sure that everybody gets home okay. He's not going to stop you for a bag of weed. He's not going to stop me for jumping the turnstile. He's not going to stop Tyler for jaywalking because he doesn't have a quota to meet and he doesn't care about those things.
Yeah.
But cops have to because it's their job.
Yeah. And their rule book is based on law, which is based by people voted. Like then you just keep going up the chain, and then you eventually,
Sure, yeah.
it's not
Who
about
writes
moral.
it? Who?
Yeah, it's
Right,
about who
yeah.
writes it, who lobbied for it, who paid for that lobbying. It has nothing to do like the end goal. The end person is not a clear moral compass.
And when that cop gets fired for letting you break the law that has nothing to do with morality, they're not going to be putting on a costume and running around and enforcing, being a vigilante because they just love morality so much. But Spider-Man does.
I think Phoenix Jones did too, Sean.
Well, and those are the people that I want to meet in real life.
That's what we need on the show. We need an interview with Phoenix Jones. Is he still around?
Sure,
I don't know, but you guys should look him up. Unfortunately, we don't have time to get into that right now. That is a real life vigilante, of which there have been, some.
Yeah.
But yeah, look into that. Ultimately, I do think. Damn it! I want to end this, but Marco, what conversation were you trying to spark? That's what I'm really trying to figure out.
I think Marco was hung up on the idea of justice and
law
being equatable,
or at the very least, enforceable.
Well, I mean, they're obviously enforceable. The law is enforceable.
Yeah,
but what?
And so that, to some degree, equates that they are vigilant for those things. They are checking for those things. I think the things you called out, like, a misdemeanor, right, won't apply, but in the same way that fraud might or murder might, like.
That's what Green Arrow's doing. Green Arrow's trying to stop that.
But hold on. But you just said murder. What? Forget a superhero. Like, if you knew of a murder, wouldn't you play a part in hopefully apprehending that person?
Like,
sure, yeah, but
so then,
well, fine, fraud, robbery, like
robbery, yes, yeah, absolutely, bro. But that's what anyone would do. Like, the problem in this world is that there aren't enough people who are willing to step up when something bad happens. But the ideal, which is why we're talking about superheroes, which are ideal humans, that's where they come in. Spider-Man's going to do what he does because you need him to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And there's no one else to do it because we're all a bunch of pussies.
I think he's a bit of a menace, actually.
Hey, easy. That's slander.
Spider-Man just doesn't get a check for it. but cops have to.
And that's where the good writing is too. That he's broke all the time.
Hell yeah,
He doesn't have union benefits.
yeah. I don't know. I think that it is an interesting conversation. I implore anyone who comes away from this feeling mixed, like read. I don't know. Read Civil War again and think about this.
Oh, I was on Iron Man's side, dude.
Me too.
This explains a lot, Marco.
I am also. Because I
never.
wouldn't want these motherfuckers running around in real life with all that power, okay, and going to schools with my kids and killing them because
Damn.
their mutant power developed when their balls dropped.
Round them up, lock them up.
No, give them a badge. That's it. Hey, what's your badge number?
You want Nuke to get a badge?
Yeah. So I could hold them accountable. What's your badge
Sign
number?
Them up.
Jeez.
Sign them up.
Let's get all these kids and give them each their own state where they become cops of that state. Let's do that.
We see how well it worked. Thank you guys
that book was canceled in like less than 50 issues.
Thank you guys for listening. Leave your thoughts in the comments. I'm sure there will be many.
Oh, yeah.
We appreciate it. Take care.